What if the love of your life disappeared in the chaos of war, leaving you to raise a child all alone? Decades later, fate brings him back into your life. But can wounds of the past ever truly heal? Follow Sophia's incredible journey of heartbreak, resilience, and a reunion that will leave you breathless. Will love and forgiveness prevail, or will the scars of betrayal run too deep? Don't miss this gripping tale of redemption and second chances. The year was 1988, and the war in Cambodia was entering its final stages. Vietnamese volunteer soldiers were tirelessly fighting to help liberate the country from the brutal Khmer Rouge regime. Among these soldiers was Ethan Carter, a 28-year-old, with unwavering dedication to his mission and comrades. During a march through the province of Battambang, Bang, Ethan's unit stopped at a small war-torn village. There he met Sophia Myers, a young Cambodian woman with long jet-black hair and a gentle smile. Despite the devastation around her, she radiated warmth and resilience. Sophia lived alone, having lost her entire family to the war. She often helped the Vietnamese soldiers by cooking meals and caring for the wounded. Ethan and Sophia quickly grew close, overcoming the barriers of language and culture. They shared stories of youth, dreams of a peaceful future, and quiet moments of understanding. Sophia's kindness and strength touched Ethan deeply, and their bond blossomed into a love that felt almost forbidden in such a harsh reality. But the war did not allow happiness to last for long. In early 1989, Ethan's unit received orders to leave Cambodia and return to Vietnam. On the eve of his departure, Ethan promised Sophia that he would return when the situation stabilized. As a token of his love, he gave her a small wooden comb engraved with their names, Ethan and Sophia. Standing on the dusty red road, Sophia clutched the comb tightly in her hand as she watched the convoy of vehicles carrying Ethan and the Vietnamese soldiers disappear into the horizon. She didn't know it then, but she was already carrying a new life within her, a child born out of their fleeting yet profound love. As the silhouette of Ethan's convoy faded into the distance, Sophia Myers stood motionless, her hand clutching the wooden comb engraved with their names. Her heart felt like it was being torn apart by the pain of separation. Ethan had been her last refuge, her only remaining connection to a world of kindness and hope. Now she was left entirely on her own, amidst the ruins of war. The small village that had once been her home was now a ghost town, ravaged by conflict. Her family was gone, leaving Sophia alone in a desolate landscape filled with memories of loss and suffering. Unable to remain in a place so heavy with sorrow, she made the difficult decision to leave and search for a new beginning. Sophia boarded a crowded, rickety bus to Phnom Penh, the capital city that, while chaotic, offered a glimmer of opportunity. Along the bumpy ride through dusty roads, she held the wooden comb close to her chest as if it were her last hope. But deep down, she knew the road ahead would not be easy. Arriving in Phnom Penh, Sophia was struck by the sheer magnitude of the city's disorder. With no family, no money, and no connections, she had no choice but to survive through sheer willpower. She changed her name to Sophia Myers, meaning golden light in Khmer, hoping that this new identity would bring her strength to rebuild her shattered life. However, life in Phnom Penh proved to be merciless. Sophia took on any work she could find, from washing dishes to hauling water and selling trinkets on the streets. She rented a tiny, cramped room that barely shielded her from the elements, and her meals were often little more than scraps. Yet, through all the hardship, she was unaware that she carried within her a spark of new life, the child she had conceived with Ethan. Late in 1989, during a torrential rainstorm, Sophia gave birth to a baby girl in her small, dimly lit room. Alone and unsupported, she named her daughter Emily Myers, meaning gentle girl in Khmer. As Sophia held Emily for the first time, tears streamed down her face, not only tears of joy, but also of despair. Emily became her sole reason for living. her one remaining source of hope. But joy was fleeting. A few months after Emily's birth, Sophia's health began to deteriorate. Dark patches appeared on her skin and gradually spread across her body. Visits to the local clinic confirmed that she had a chronic autoimmune disease that weakened her immune system and drained her vitality. The illness also altered her once radiant complexion, making her skin dull and rough. Sophia would often gaze at her reflection in a cracked mirror and fail to recognize the woman staring back. The hollow eyes, the sallow complexion. She had become a shadow of her former self. Many nights, she cradled Emily in her arms, sobbing quietly, wondering if she had the strength to raise her child in a world that had been so cruel to her. Despite her physical and emotional pain, Sophia resolved to protect Emily at all costs. She would shield her daughter from the bitter memories of war, from the scars of her own past. Whenever she thought of Ethan, her heart ached with longing and anger. She wondered if he would have come back for her if he knew he had a daughter, but she pushed the thought away. War had taken everything from her, and she refused to cling to false hope. Phnom Penh, despite its chaos and poverty, became Sophia's refuge. She stayed, determined to carve out a life for her daughter, even if it meant sacrificing her own well-being. In 1989, Ethan Carter returned to Vietnam after completing his mission as a volunteer soldier in Cambodia. Back in his homeland, he felt as though his life was an unfinished book, a chapter left open with lingering regret. The image of Sophia Myers, standing silently in their village, clutching the wooden comb he had given her, haunted his thoughts. He realized that if he were to atone for leaving her behind, he needed to build a better life. Determined to create a future he could be proud of, Ethan applied to a university in Ho Chi Minh City to study economics. The path ahead was anything but easy. As a returning soldier, he had nothing but his bare hands and the scars of war. Yet it was the memory of Sophia's strength and the promise he had made to her that fueled his resolve. Ethan juggled his studies with various jobs to support himself. He worked as a laborer, a waiter, and even a tutor. Many nights, he sat alone in his cramped dormitory, staring into the darkness, with only the memory of Sophia and the wooden comb he had left behind to keep him going. Her name echoed in his mind like an unhealed wound, driving him forward despite the challenges. 4 years of relentless effort paid off, and Ethan graduated with a degree in economics. He soon secured a position at an import-export company. Through intelligence and hard work, he climbed the corporate ladder. By the early 2000s, Ethan had established his own successful business in Ho Chi Minh City, specializing in the export of luxury wood products. Despite his accomplishments, Ethan's heart remained hollow. Every night in his spacious apartment, he found himself thinking of Sophia. He wondered where she was, whether she still had the wooden comb, and whether she had moved on. Her memory refused to fade, lingering like a bittersweet echo of the love he had lost. Ethan tried to move forward. He dated several women and even got engaged once, but none of these relationships worked out. The shadow of his past loomed too large. Sophia's image remained imprinted in his heart, a constant reminder of the unfinished story they had shared. In 2005, during a business trip to Cambodia, Ethan decided to return to the province of Battambang. He went back to the village where he and Sophia had met, hoping to find some trace of her. But when he arrived, he found that the village had changed beyond recognition. The dusty roads were overgrown with grass, and the small wooden house where Sophia had lived was now a pile of rubble. Ethan asked the elderly villagers about her, but no one seemed to remember much. Some mentioned a young woman who had lived there years ago, but had left for Phnom Penh after the war. Ethan stood in the ruins of her former home, his heart heavy with regret and helplessness. He blamed himself for not keeping his promise, for leaving Sophia to face the harsh realities of life alone. Determined not to give up, Ethan traveled to Phnom Penh. He searched tirelessly, wandering through bustling markets and quiet alleys, asking about Sophia wherever he went, yet no one could provide any answers. After weeks of fruitless searching, Ethan boarded a flight back to Vietnam with a heavy heart. As the plane ascended, he gazed out of the window, whispering to himself, "Sophia, wherever you are, I hope you're living a good life. I will keep searching for you, no matter how long it takes." In a modest neighborhood of Phnom Penh, in the early 2000s, Sophia Myers and her daughter Emily Myers shared a small, humble home filled with warmth and resilience. Despite the struggles Sophia endured, she had poured all her strength into raising Emily. The young girl grew into a bright and determined student, standing out in her school with both her beauty and intelligence. One day, the long hours of hard work paid off when Emily received a full scholarship to a prestigious university in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. The news brought joy to their small household, but it also filled Sophia with a mix of pride and apprehension. She knew Emily had outgrown the limitations of their life in Phnom Penh, but as a mother, the thought of her daughter leaving filled her with worry. Holding Emily close, Sophia said with a trembling voice, "Emily, my love, I believe in you. You're stronger than I've ever been. I know you'll make me proud." Emily, her eyes shining with determination, replied, "Mom, I promise I'll work hard and make you proud. One day, I'll bring you to live in a beautiful house." As Emily packed her belongings for the journey, Sophia silently reflected on her own past. She remembered being the same age as Emily when her life had been upended by war and loss. The wooden comb Ethan had given her remained tucked away safely, a relic of a love she never spoke of. To Emily, Sophia had always been a strong and independent mother. She had never shared the pain of her lost love or the identity of Emily's father. Some memories, Sophia thought, are better kept locked away. When the day of Emily's departure arrived, Sophia stood at the bus station, her heart brimming with both hope and sadness. As the bus pulled away, Sophia waved until she could no longer see Emily. "My Emily," she whispered to herself, "I know you'll shine in that new world." In September 2007, Emily Myers arrived in the bustling city of Ho Chi Minh. The vibrant streets, filled with motorbikes and bright lights, were a far cry from the quieter chaos of Phnom Penh. Everything felt new and challenging, but Emily's heart burned with ambition. She saw this as her chance to not only achieve her dreams, but also to honor her mother's sacrifices. Adapting quickly, Emily excelled in her studies, earning respect from her professors and peers alike. She made a name for herself with her diligence and quick wit, all while carrying the quiet determination instilled in her by Sophia. One day, her university hosted a prestigious seminar featuring successful entrepreneurs, including Ethan Carter, now a well-known business magnate in Vietnam. Curious and eager to learn, Emily attended the event with excitement. Dressed neatly in her white uniform, she listened intently as Ethan shared his journey of perseverance and success. Sitting in the front row, Emily couldn't help but be captivated by the man's confident demeanor and insightful words. There was something familiar in his warm yet commanding presence that she couldn't quite place. For his part, Ethan found himself drawn to the young woman in the audience. Her focused gaze and bright expression stirred a strange sense of déjà vu. After the seminar, Emily boldly approached Ethan. "Mr. Carter," she said with a respectful bow, "I greatly admire your story. Could you share how you maintained confidence in yourself, even during failures?" Ethan, impressed by her maturity and curiosity, answered thoughtfully, then asked her about her background. When Emily mentioned she was a Cambodian student studying in Vietnam, he felt a pang of emotion, but didn't show it. "And your name?" Ethan asked. "Emily Myers," she replied with a proud smile. The name caught him off guard, but he quickly masked his reaction. "It's a beautiful name," he said warmly. "With your determination, I'm sure you'll succeed." From that day forward, Ethan and Emily remained in touch. He often sent her books and study materials, inviting her to industry events to broaden her knowledge. To Ethan, Emily was an exceptionally talented young woman, worth mentoring. Yet, as time passed, he couldn't shake the growing sense of familiarity he felt around her. For Emily, Ethan became more than just a mentor. His kindness and guidance filled a void she hadn't realized existed, and she began to look up to him as a father figure, unaware of the truth hidden in their connection. As the mentorship between Ethan Carter and Emily Myers deepened, Ethan began to notice striking similarities between Emily and someone from his past. Her eyes, her determined spirit, and even the way she smiled reminded him of Sophia Myers, the woman he had left behind years ago in Cambodia. These observations unsettled him, and questions about Emily's origins began to gnaw at his mind. One afternoon, during a quiet moment after an industry event, Ethan decided to ask Emily more about her life. They sat in a cozy corner of a cafe, the sunlight filtering through the window and casting warm shadows around them. "Emily," Ethan began cautiously, "I hope you don't mind me asking, but I've always been curious about your family. You've mentioned your mother before. What about your father?" Emily paused, her expression softening as she looked down at her coffee cup. "I've never known my father," she admitted. "My mother raised me on her own. She's the strongest person I know. She never speaks about him, but I've always sensed that it's a painful memory for her." Ethan's heart clenched at her words. He hesitated, unsure of how to proceed, but he couldn't let his suspicions go unanswered. "Your last name, Myers. Did your mother ever tell you why she chose it?" Emily shook her head. "She told me it meant light in Khmer, but I never thought much about it. It's just who we are." Ethan nodded, hiding the storm of emotions swirling inside him. That night, as he lay in his apartment, he retrieved the wooden comb he had once given Sophia. It was the only relic of his time with her, and seeing it now brought back memories of their love and the promises he had failed to keep. His suspicions about Emily's parentage began to solidify into certainty. Driven by the need to know the truth, Ethan hired a private investigator to locate Sophia. Weeks later, the investigator returned with a report. Sophia Myers was alive and living in Phnom Penh. The news shook Ethan to his core. After decades of regret and searching, he had finally found her. Ethan traveled to Phnom Penh with a mix of hope and fear. When he arrived at Sophia's modest home, he hesitated at the gate, his heart pounding. Taking a deep breath, he knocked on the door. Moments later, the door creaked open, and there she was, Sophia Myers, older but still carrying the quiet grace he had fallen in love with so many years ago. Sophia froze when she saw him, her eyes widening in shock. The wooden comb slipped from her hand and clattered to the floor. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Sophia," he replied softly, "I'm so sorry. I've been looking for you for years." Tears welled up in Sophia's eyes as decades of suppressed emotions flooded back. "Why now, Ethan? After all this time, why come back?" she asked, her voice cracking. "I didn't know," he said earnestly. "I didn't know about Emily. If I had, I would never have left you alone. Please, let me explain." Sophia stepped back, her expression a mix of anger and pain. "You left, Ethan. You promised you'd come back, and you didn't. I had to raise our daughter on my own, through pain and hardship." Ethan knelt down and picked up the wooden comb, holding it out to her. "I made mistakes, Sophia, mistakes I can't undo, but I'm here now, and I want to make things right, for you and for Emily." Sophia's walls began to crack, but years of hurt held her back. "It's not that simple, Ethan. Emily doesn't know who you are, and she's built a life for herself without you." "I know," Ethan said, his voice steady. "But I want to be part of her life, if you'll let me. Please, Sophia, give me a chance to prove that I can be the father she deserves." Sophia Myers spent days grappling with the emotions stirred by Ethan Carter's return. She had survived so many years without him, raising Emily Myers alone. Through unimaginable challenges, letting Ethan back into their lives was not a decision she could take lightly. But deep down, she knew Emily deserved to know the truth about her father. A week after their reunion, Sophia invited Ethan to meet Emily at her home in Phnom Penh. As Ethan entered the modest house, he noticed a small table in the corner with neatly framed photographs of Sophia and Emily. His heart ached as he realized how much of their lives he had missed. When Emily arrived home from university on a semester break, she was surprised to find a stranger sitting in their living room. Sophia gently guided her to sit and introduced Ethan. "Emily, this is Ethan Carter," Sophia began, her voice trembling slightly. He's your father." Emily froze, her wide eyes darting between her mother and Ethan. "What?" she whispered, unable to process the words. Ethan leaned forward, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Emily, I didn't know about you until recently. If I had, I would have come back much sooner. I'm so sorry for not being there for you and your mother." Emily's face twisted in disbelief and anger. "You're telling me this now, after all these years? Where were you when my mom was struggling to keep us alive? When she worked herself to exhaustion just to give me a chance at life?" Sophia placed a comforting hand on Emily's shoulder. "Emily, I never told him. He didn't know. I wanted to protect you from disappointment. But maybe I made the wrong decision." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as the weight of the revelation settled over her. She turned to Ethan, her voice sharp. "Do you think showing up now makes everything better? Do you think you can just erase the years of pain and sacrifice my mom endured?" Ethan nodded solemnly. "No, I can't erase the past, and I don't expect forgiveness right away, but I want to be here for you now, if you'll let me. I want to know you, to support you in any way I can." Emily stood abruptly, her emotions too overwhelming to handle. "I need time," she said, her voice breaking, before retreating to her room. Ethan turned to Sophia, his expression filled with regret. "I've hurt her, haven't I?" Sophia shook her head. "She just needs time. She's strong, Ethan, but this is a lot to take in. Let her process it." Over the following weeks, Ethan made quiet efforts to reconnect with Emily. He sent her thoughtful messages, attended her university presentations, and shared stories about his life. At first, Emily kept her distance, unsure if she could trust him. But as time went on, she began to see the sincerity in his actions. One afternoon, Ethan invited Emily to lunch at a small cafe near her university. To his surprise, she agreed. Sitting across from him, Emily finally broke the silence that had lingered between them. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you for not being there," she began, her tone cautious but less hostile. "But I can see you're trying. And for my mom's sake, I think I'm willing to give you a chance." Ethan's eyes glistened with gratitude. "Thank you, Emily. That means more to me than you know." As they shared stories and laughter over lunch, a fragile but promising bond began to form. For Ethan, it was a second chance at being the father he had always wanted to be. For Emily, it was an opportunity to understand the man who had unknowingly shaped her existence. Months passed, and the once distant relationship between Ethan Carter and Emily Myers began to grow stronger. While the scars of the past couldn't be completely erased, their shared determination to move forward helped bridge the gap. Sophia Myers watched quietly, her heart filled with a mix of relief and hope, as she saw her daughter and Ethan start to build a connection. One day, Ethan invited Sophia and Emily to his home in Ho Chi Minh City. The house was spacious, with modern furnishings and a warm, inviting atmosphere. Over dinner, Ethan shared his desire to do more for them. "Sophia, Emily," he began, "I've spent so many years building this life, but it always felt empty. Now, having you both here, it feels like home. I want to be part of your lives, not just in words, but in actions." Sophia looked at him, her expression cautious, yet soft. "Ethan, it's not about what you can give us. We've lived without much for so long, and we've been happy. What matters is consistency and sincerity. Ethan nodded, his gaze steady. I understand, and I'll prove to you that I'm here to stay. As time went on, Ethan supported Emily's education and future career. With his connections and encouragement, she secured an internship at a prestigious international company in Vietnam. Seeing Emily thrive brought joy to both Sophia and Ethan, as it symbolized the opportunities neither of them had growing up. For Sophia, the journey to trust Ethan again was slow but steady. She began to see the man she had fallen in love with years ago, changed, humbled, and determined to make amends. While she still guarded her heart, she allowed herself to let Ethan back into her life in small but meaningful ways. One evening, as the three of them sat together in Sophia's modest home in Phnom Penh, Ethan presented a small worn box. Inside was the wooden comb he had given her decades ago. I kept this, Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. It's the only piece of you I had for all these years. It reminded me of what I lost and what I hope to find again. Sophia took the comb in her hands, her eyes glistening. And now? She asked softly. Now, Ethan replied. I hope it symbolizes a new beginning. For all of us. Emily, sitting between them, smiled through her tears. We've been through so much, but I think we've finally found what matters most. Years later, Emily graduated with honors and began a career that took her around the world. She often returned to visit her parents, who had grown closer over time. Ethan and Sophia never officially remarried, but remained partners in every sense, supporting each other and finding happiness in the family they had rebuilt. The wooden comb, now an heirloom, sat on a shelf in their home, a reminder of their journey from pain to healing, from separation to reunion. It symbolized not just their love, but also their resilience and the power of second chances. As they sat together one evening, watching the sunset from their garden, Ethan took Sophia's hand and said, We've been through the worst, but we've come out stronger. Thank you for giving me this chance. Sophia smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. It wasn't just for you, Ethan. It was for all of us. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, their story of redemption, love, and family found its peaceful, hopeful conclusion.